Hello everybody, this is Carol speaking. Welcome back to our PolyWorks webinar. So today we are talking about CNC CMM measurement sequences and how PolyWorks can assist you. Let's welcome Todd Anderson as he is our presenter today. Todd is a member of the technical support group. And let me remind you that if you have any questions during the webinar, please use the questions panel. I will be monitoring the questions throughout the webinar, and we will have a short Q&A session at the end. If we don't have time to answer all of the questions, we will get back to you by email. And yes, we are recording this webinar, so it will be available for later viewing. So Todd, it's all yours.
Great, thanks, Carol. So today we're going to talk about CNC measurement sequences. And to start off with, I wanted to tell everyone how excited I was to be able to do this webinar and show you. When PolyWorks 2019 came out for an inspector, this was one of the new items that was added in. And the first time I tested it out, I was just amazed by it. So today, I hope you're going to be as excited as I am with presenting this to see just how powerful this is to help you in your creation. So to set the scene, I have a project here where I've got a part that would be on a CNC table. You can see that it shows up here. It's the hood, or the inside of a hood panel. And everything below that is going to be the fixture. And so I've kind of gone through and made it a little bit transparent. And you'll see that we have 3 spheres that are used for tooling balls that would help me go through and create a final alignment. Now, to speed things up, I've already gone and started the sequence and created it. And I've also created a quick CNC alignment. So you can see it's preset, ready to go for us to create things. And in this scenario, we would need to go through and measure all the objects on the screen. And let's switch over and look at this kind of from the top. Everything that you see showing up in blue would be all of the objects that we need to measure. Also, in our measurement plan, we would have to have a final alignment using those tooling spheres. So to start off, let's go through and just work through these steps. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how we can use this new function that's in the sequence editor. It's a mode in which it's the edit the sequence and measurement path interactively. So when I launch this, you'll see that we have 5 icons that have been added down into the 3D scene, and these are what's going to help us in creating the sequence a whole lot faster. So first thing off in our plan was we would need to actually come through and grab these 3 spheres, and we would need to add them into the sequence for measurement. Now, we could simply have right-clicked and said add to sequence. However, when we're in this mode now, we can simply have them selected and then just click an icon that says add them to the sequence for us. What the software will do is it not only will add it into the sequence, it's going to go through and it's going to calculate the most efficient path. So you'll see the order that the spheres are in the tree. It's 1, 2, and 3. However, inside the sequence editor, it's 3, 2, and 1. Not only are those added into the sequence, you'll see that there's actually a go-to that the software has gone through with the collision detection being run in real time. It's added in our go-to positions to move our probe to a point where there won't be any collisions. So if I kind of just rotate the view up, it looks pretty simple from the front here. But if we were to look at this, say, from the back and zoom into this tooling ball, you can see that definitely it's kind of hidden back behind here. And having that go-to added in to safely come down to that, it was all done for us, and it's ready for us to go through and do the measurement. All I had to do was simply select it and then use the command add it to the sequence. So looking at this back again at, say, the top view, we can see this would be the path, and the path is starting. Remember, my probe is right here. That was the last position it was in. So this is what's gone through and run as far as what we're seeing to create the path. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and have it run through and measure all of those. Proceed anyway, yes. So we've gone through and everything has been measured inside. And from this, what we can do is actually do our final alignment. And that's going through saying, okay, let me record this. I'll select the 3 spheres and let's do a best fit measurement object alignment. So we'll say start, and we're aligned and up and running inside. So us going through and doing the selection, I've actually gone through and I had selected everything in the tree when I had selected this. However, you can see that I've got a lot of other objects on here that need to be measured. And the thing is there's a ton of circles, like for example, up here on the very top, I do not know which circle is which. I don't necessarily have them in the same order as the tree as they're placed, say left to right or top to bottom. They're just there. Well, when we're in the edit sequence mode through here, one of the things is we can do everything interactively on the screen. So I could simply come up and I can make a selection of, say, these circles right here at the top. And with these circles selected, I can simply say add them to the sequence. The software will come through and add everything in. Now, there's a warning saying a couple objects couldn't be added in. Well, this is me going too fast. I actually had selected stuff on the tree, but if you remember, I didn't deselect my spheres. So PolyWorks is actually keeping up and saying, you know, we couldn't measure those because, well, they were already measured. And in this case, we were pretty much focusing on these objects that we needed right here. So if I simply just click out here in space, that deselection is there. But the probe had been probing sphere number 1 up here last, and it's gone through and it's calculated the path and popped the measurements into the tree for us, excuse me, the sequence editor. Now, if I went too fast with this, let me show it to you again. So I'm simply just going to go and I'm going to do a window selection of the objects on the screen and just come down and grab those. They're highlighted and simply add them into the sequence again. The software will go through and calculate not only the measurements, but the sequence or the path it should use, and it will pick the most efficient path to measure those particular objects. Now, here's the results. However, one of the things that you'll see is there's actually a red flag on one of our paths letting us know that we have a collision, and also in the sequence editor we'll get a warning saying there's a potential collision. Do you want to analyze this? So one of the things that I started noticing is a lot of people will come back and they'll start to do the analyze collision. But if we kind of think and keep in the terms of staying within the 3D scene, one of the other things that a lot of people ignore is you can actually hover over top of the path and it's going to give you a pull down. And you can actually use the analyze path command from inside of here. So there's also some other different things that you can use for the selection itself. So this way, I'm going to actually click analyze path. And one of the nice things about this is you don't have to zoom into that. You can actually have that command inside where this will go through and show you, okay, here's us zooming into the path. Now, I want to step through this path until show me where the collision is going to occur. So in this case, the procedures that were done to measure this or the properties of the plane, this did not take into account that little piece of a stiffener that was there in the forming of this. Now, to fix this, it's as simple as just using a right mouse click command where we could come in and say insert. I could use the pull down, which was pick a go-to position. But one of the other things is when we're in the assisted mode is we've actually added that icon down here as well. So if I want to pick a go-to position, I can simply come up here and click and simply roll this up until I see green and I have a clearance, and it's actually added into the sequence and everything is clear and my warnings have gone away. So the software is really, really powerful, and this is one of the things that I got excited with is I see a ton of things that I need to measure, and it's going to take me forever to get this done. But when we're in the assisted mode here, the software, or the edit, excuse me, I call it the assisted mode. It's the edit mode. It's actually assisting us in doing a lot of that work for us. We have way too much stuff to do, and you'll know from other webinars that I've done, I've always stressed, let the software try to leverage its ability to do a lot of that work for you. So we've gone through and we've been doing this. We've been doing these measurements from, say, the top down. My tool orientation has been an A0, B0. Now, I've got some more measurements that actually need to be done over on this side. And one of the things is, if I were to go through and zoom in on this, and we see I actually have some points running along the side, but I have this slot. And the slot is actually on this angled part. And for it to go through and measure this properly, it's going to have a hard time trying to do this in this tool orientation. Well, PolyWorks can actually do this work for us. So if I shift myself back up to the top view through here, and what we're going to do is I'll just go through again, say, select everything that I see on the side, and then add it into the sequence. PolyWorks is going to go through, calculate the efficient path, but it's also going to go through, and if there needs to be a tool orientation change, that will be placed inside of there, and the most efficient tool orientation would be used to measure as many things as it can. So in this case, it's gone through and measured everything along that side through there in that tool orientation. Oops. Me going a little quick. And then if I kind of zoom in down through here, we can see everything looks pretty good. I have another warning show up. So over here in the tree, you'll see that there was, when I went to measure this circle, one of the things that's happened with this is, if we zoom in real close, there's actually a pin inside that circle. This usually happens when we're running like 100 miles an hour trying to go through, and we may forget something. Well, with this, when we're going through, this is going through and the error occurs where it's actually trying to measure a circle, but a pin is in the way. For this might be something we have to change as far as the measurement goes. Well, we can simply just come back and go to the properties of the circle, and we were set to CNC probe. And let me drag that over. The submethod was set to standard, however, we have a pin in the hole. So us switching over to that would give us a new method of going through and measuring. However, because the pin is at an angle and the orientation that is being used, we'll still see that maybe there is some collisions that could happen inside of here. So just changing some of the existing parameters to see if this will help make things work a little bit better. I can simply go through and use those, and everything's applied, and we're fixed back to where we should be. So let's go back and look at the overall piece from the top. So far, we've been able to go through and measure our tooling balls, the objects in the top view, and the stuff over on the right-hand side. I still have some objects down here at the bottom to measure, as well as on the left-hand side. When we're in this edit sequence mode and measurement path, we actually give you another sub-mode that's in there, and that's going to be hiding the objects once they've been added to the sequence. If I turn this off, you'll see that all my features come back in. However, if I want to know what I haven't measured yet, if we have this turned on, everything that's been added to the sequence, when I say measured, they're basically hidden. So it goes through and lets you see what's going on. And again, PolyWorks is doing all the work for you, and it's keeping up with everything. For this last one, I'm just going to simply just go through and grab everything from the top and the sides and add them in, and let PolyWorks go through and do its calculations. I'm pretty sure there's going to be another orientation. There actually may be two that's to be used, because I have a slot on the second side as well as those points that were up on the front. So if we zoom out through here, we can see that, yes, there was a new tool orientation that's been done, and it's been added in, as well as the most efficient path for it to do its measurements on this side, come down to the bottom and work its way around versus jumping to the opposite side and moving through. So the optimization of this toolpath is being done by PolyWorks in the background. The most I had to do was go through and select the objects I wanted to measure. This is great, this is really powerful, and it's exciting, but typically when we're doing a measurement like this, usually something will change. Or as soon as somebody finds out that we're measuring a certain part and it might be on the machine, it always comes down to the last minute where we have everything set up that someone will ask us to do a new measurement. Or that looks great, but what does this look like over here? And for us to go through and do that, you know, it's always one of where we just kind of roll our eyes and say, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And we have to add these changes in. Well, I've gone through and said, let's create a scenario like that where we've had a design change or someone's asked us to add something more in. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some surface comparison points that were sent to me, say from engineering, into a file. So I can go and select these points and import them in. And once they're in, we can see that they've shown up right here in the middle. So they're in the middle, but they're kind of scattered through everything that's inside of here. Now, typically, when somebody asks us to do something at the last minute, we'll just add it to the end of the sequence that we've created. However, that's not going to be really that efficient because, you know, we've kind of been following a path that goes around and measures everything. What would be really nice is I have some features that were up in here, like these circles that were measured. It would be really nice if I could have added these in to where they were located in the sequence. So we're at 104, 105 steps in the sequence. I can't remember what circle that was or where these should be added in. This is where PolyWorks has your back on this as well. So these points have been added in as far as the tree goes. They're pre-selected here, but one of the things that we have that we can add in is I can add these into the sequence in their most optimal location. So PolyWorks can actually come back through and find where they should be placed in using the measurement sequence that I had earlier. So again, it's going to go through and recalculate everything that's there and reposition the order in which these new items have been added in. So you can see here's the sequence that's been added through this whole thing, but if we were to go through and scroll in the tree, all of these blue spots are where those were added in. So this is a very powerful new tool that when we say it's assisting you, it's doing all the work for you. I'm very excited to show you that today, and that's one of the things that the power with 2019 that's available. Now, one last thing before I go is I've talked about analyzing the toolpaths when we've had a collision. But one of the things that I think that a lot of people don't take into consideration is we can actually go through and analyze the toolpath of the entire part. So if I were to turn all of the paths on to see what's happening through here is I can actually come through and say, I'm going to go to the Analyze Toolpath the third way, which is through the menu, say Analyze Toolpath. This can actually let me go through and scroll. So I'm going to actually set it right here. And then I'm going to go through and just tick through all of the movements that the path has taken. I can simply go through and see how this is popping up and where the movements are with this. Now I'm doing this through all on an offline simulation, but the thing is when we're running this Analyze Toolpath and we're stepping through it, we're not taking the measurements. You could still go back through and do this on your machine and not in the toolpath mode where we can actually go through and make sure that it is in those regions we said it would be. And maybe if we kind of had our cup of coffee sitting over here and we see that it's stepping through, it might knock it off. That might be one of the things that's an advantage for us with it. So it's one of the things I always see people not using tools enough, and I kind of teach this in my classes, and I actually wanted to add it into today's webinar. So I've actually gone through and done enough talking on this, but I hope I've been able to show you that when we're going in and we're using this edit measurement path mode, that the software is doing a lot of the work for us. And when we say it's assisting the creation of our measurement sequence, it's doing a whole lot more than just placing it in the tree. It's actually doing a lot of calculations that we don't need to do. Using real-time collision, it's doing the optimal tool path, and it's adding in go-tos when it needs to, as well as figuring out which tool orientation it should use for the appropriate areas. With this, I'm going to turn this over to Carol and see if we have any questions.
Thank you, Todd. And yes, we do have some questions that are coming in, and I am warning you, we have very attentive users here. So the first question is regarding the first plane number 1, where you had a collision and you added a go-to to that plane, but the go-to didn't go into the sequence. So can you explain that? And would that go-to point will need to be added each time? What's happening with that?
I'm sorry, you said that the go-to was not added into the sequence?
Yeah, the go-to point that you added to correct the collision on plane 1.
Oh, okay. So the go-to point, let me turn off this edit mode. The go-to point for the plane that was added in. Now, I don't know where this is inside of here when we added the plane and probed it in. So give me a second. Okay. So one of the things that we can do is, and this is, I'm always worried when I do a webinar that I'm going to get stumped on something, but my answer has always been the answer to everything in PolyWorks is a right mouse click. I'm not sure where in the sequence this is as far as the plane goes. I know where it is in the tree. I can come into here and I think I can go through, yep. Okay, I can select where it is as far as the sequence steps goes. So one of the things that's always been, you could right click to say find it in the tree, but you can also go backwards and find where this was probed in. So the statement you had said was there's no go-to position that was added in, and I was going so fast I didn't notice this, but it is added in. The collision, and that probably was me not explaining this as well, the collision occurred for this plane here. So if I zoom in down to the plane, the collision occurred when it hits this stiffening bracket through here. However, that was in the measurement sequence of the plane. So what I mean by that is if I come through and we go to the properties of the plane and we come under the measurement, it's set to standard, where are the points that are going to be taken to measure this? And if I come in and I say turn on the window that shows us my measurement points, it had set it up to go through and measure 3. So it would have been 1, 3, and 5. The error, the collision occurred when it was moving between point number 1 and point number 3. Here's that go-to that was added in. So that kind of took me a second when you said that. I was like, but it showed us as a green. This go-to is not added in at the sequence. It's actually added into the measurement parameters. So when I was saying, you know, PolyWorks is got you covered as far as trying to find these, when we're in that mode, so if I clear out of here and I put us back into the edit sequence mode, when we're inside of here, this go-to, when we add a go-to position, this can be added in as different steps in the sequence, or if we're in a measurement and the properties of that measurement, the go-to could be added in locally there. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. So I told you it was a tricky one. And we're going to squeeze one last question, and I know you've heard it before. When you are selecting the objects in the 3D scene, can you give us the exact combination of keys that you're using to have that selection window?
Okay, I have to laugh at this one because this is one I get going 100 miles an hour, and I mess up a lot through here. So we'll wait for my backup to stop. Let's look at this, say, from the top view. So when we're going through and we're looking at this, and we'll take it back to the single segment there. inside of here, you guys went through and watched me do like a window select. And I laugh at this because typically what happens is when we're in object selection mode, so right over here, I'm set for that, we'll come up and we can click on an object, and when we click on it, we can either grab the annotation or we can select it. But we think we're in window select mode, and we start to press and we rotate over on the screen, and this happens to me all the time. So the thing you have to get used to is when you're in object selection mode and you want to do like a big window select, you have to actually hold the shift key down and the control key down on the keyboard, and also use the middle mouse button. So one of the things that typically happens for me is I'll hold the shift key down a lot and use the middle mouse button, and it does a window zoom. But what I'm wanting is a selection. So that's not what I want. And you go 100 miles an hour with this, but if you hold the shift and control down and you middle select, this gives you a selection window. So I'm actually kind of glad Carol brought this up, because I see this happen a lot. It happens to me a ton, and it's like, oh, I just needed to hold down one more key when I'm doing that. But what happens is I either rotate or I zoom in to that because I forgot to hold the control key down and shift. Now, the other thing is, it's not magic that I was only selecting the features or the objects on the screen. Remember, in object selection mode, the other thing is I've turned off to make sure I'm not going to select the reference. So I'm not going to be able to go through and select the CAD model by accident or select the fixture. And if I had any data objects up there, those won't be selected either. So I've just filtered it out to the objects that I may want to grab that I'm going to be using for this sequence. So that's another good question, and I owe Carol on that one.
Thank you, Todd. And this is all the time that we have for the questions. So this webinar has been recorded. It will be available on the Innovametrics software website. Navigate to the support section and choose webinars. It will also be available on the Innovametrics software channel on YouTube. So our next webinar, please note the date. It has been pushed a little bit. It has been pushed later in June, so June 20th. And we are going to be talking how to integrate in-house measurement techniques within PolyWorks inspectors. So yes, dealing with a brand new PolyWorks 2019 functionality again. I'm saying scripted measurement methods. It might ring a bell to some of you here. So please mark the date. It is scheduled for June 20th. Thank you for joining us this morning, and we'll definitely see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.